RPG at the enemy position.
И там тоже снимали. Отсюда. Отсюда. Подними. И там как горит. Как горит. Алекс, меня?
Ух, ебать. Прикинь. В спину осколок уебал.
So really, you want to get back into the military thing, so you decide, hey, I'm going to Ukraine because I want to be involved in this.
Yeah. Long story short, want to get back in the military, wanted to get back to try to potentially reach those certain pinnacles that I never got to. You know, one of them was always want to be a ranger, want to do special forces stuff. I really wanted a career in the Army. And since it was all cut short and I wasn't able to re-enlist, I decided, hey, look, you know, maybe I'll join the French Foreign Legion. So I started looking into what the French Foreign Legion was. And I started looking into guys who were volunteering to fight in Syria against ISIS at this time. And then also there was a group of people who were fighting in Ukraine against Russian-backed separatists that wasn't really getting as much attention. And I felt like, you know, that was more the route for me to go because I wanted to, you know, reinvent myself, being Ukrainian, my heritage. I could also speak some Russian at that point. I just decided, I was like, hey, look, I'm going to go through with this.
So you end up over there. I mean, how hard is it for you to get in the military? Are they just accepting people or?
Well, the first thing I did was I reached out to an organization called the Georgian National Legion, and it was a paramilitary group that fell underneath the Armed Forces of Ukraine, their army section. It was basically a group designed by Georgian nationals to aim to Ukraine to fight in the Donbass conflict. You know, from guys who had previous experience fighting in South Ossetia in 2008. And there was also a war with Ukraine. I met with Georgia and Russia and the Abkhazia region in the 1990s. So there's a lot of Georgian guys who kind of have like a disdain, you know, for Russian imperialism, things like that. So they formed their own group and they were taking foreigners who would apply. So I sent this guy an email, sent him my D-214, basically it's my U.S. Army like release documentation as a resume. And he was like, yeah, come in, you know, let's get you started. So I came in, flew into Kiev, joined up with this unit, kind of went through all the medical process that they have us do. And before I knew it, you know, I was at their mobilization training site, which was located in Kharkiv region of Ukraine. And I did my first deployment to Donbass in 2017. And that was a wake-up call for sure.
That's real action. That's real violence, right?
Yeah, that was, see, like the U.S. Army, especially when global war on terror was going on, we focused so much on counterinsurgency doctrine. They call it coin operations. Going here, the fighting here in Ukraine was more like your traditional World War II type land fighting. You know, so it wasn't like, okay, there's a forward operations base and then every day you dismount to do a specific mission and then you come back. It was like, no, you're living on that position. The Russians are only 170 meters in front of you. You guys are going to be dueling it out all day. And when you're not doing it out, you know, you're doing things like collecting firewood, you know, bringing food and water to the position, digging, trench maintenance, fortifying your position continuously. So it's just like, it was very, very difficult style of living, especially in the winter. It's like, it's super cold. You're just outside all the time. And while this is all going on, you're dealing with a harsh environment. You're just being shot at like around the clock, and I never had experience where there was guys, blasting at my position with RPGs and 50 cal Duchakas, PKMs, all these AK small arms fire, just boom, like coming directly at you in your position. It was just definitely more intense than I envisioned it, thought it was going to be.
What do you feel when that's happened? Do you feel excitement? Because I used to tell people sometimes in prison, when they start shooting from the gun towers, you feel a sense of excitement, but you also feel a sense of fear. I mean, what's it like when you're sitting down there and they're shooting at you?
So the first night I got to the sector, I was in a village called Luhanska, and this was maybe 30 minutes north of the city of Donetsk in the Donbass region. It's actually near Bakhmut, which has been in the news a lot this past year. And I remember when we pulled up to that village in the middle of the night, I could just see like these flares, illumination flares going up in the sky. And then the sky would light up, and then just like all hell would just break loose. Like all you would hear is echoing machine gun fire and explosions. And I remember the guys from the Georgian dudes, they looked at me and they're like, "That's your position. Like, that's where you're going to tomorrow morning." And I was like, "Serious? Like, over there, And I was like, "All right, well, I got to put my tough guy face on because, I'm over there like, oh, I'm the American, professional. I can't look like I'm scared or anything like that, Gotta look like this is natural." But I remember the first time getting up in that position, just getting there was like, okay, you got to sprint from this tree line to this tree line because this open ground, like there's been a sniper covering it, and he shot like 2 people this month. So you got to just like quickly run, from point A to point B. And just getting there was super dangerous. And then finally, like as you're like getting closer and closer and just getting louder, and it's just like there's a bunch of guys sitting around like just eating, like, oh, hey, there's the new guy. Come on, I'm like shaking a little bit, like nervous, like, like pretending that all is good. I know I got myself together. But for like the first day and the first few firefights that I got into, there's like a lot of adrenaline pumping. There was some fear. But it was just like, I had this in me to say, hey, Alex, like, do what your training told you to do. Stand up, return fire. Like, do what you're taught to do. Do what you came here to do. And every time we start getting into shootouts, I started just getting up and just shooting back. It was just like, there would be a confidence boost. And every time I kept doing it and being successful at it, it was just like, actually, in a strange way, started to enjoy it a little bit and started to like desensitize from it. The adrenaline started to wear down.
One mistake could cost your life though, right?
One mistake can cost your life. And it was like, again, it might be in like 40 of these little, firefights. And then the next day, the guy you've been hanging out with, comes to your position with water, and then he gets shot in the head, out of nowhere. And it's just like, then it's just a reminder. It's like, look, this is a dangerous place. You gotta pay attention. There was one point where I remember our trench system would connect to another friendly trench that would take us to like a logistical point where we could pick up our water and our food and everything like that. And I remember one day I was told to go out and grab these like metal frame, bed, like for cots or something like that. So I'm dragging this bed frame back through the trench, and one of the guys stops me and he's like, "Yo, stop. Like, look down. What? He's just like there's a mine, minas, this." I was like, "What? Where?" It's like, "Oh shit, there's a mine in our trench like that. My foot just barely passed while I'm bringing this bed frame through." And I was like, yo, I was mad because I'm like, nobody told me about this mine. Why is it even here? And why is there no signs or anything? And he was like, there is a sign. I'm like, what? we looked, there was a stick with an empty cigarette packet stuck on the stick, just sitting there. And he was like, "That's the sign." Yeah, so I was like, "Hey, you have to always be paying attention. I was just a centimeter off from potentially losing my legs or something like that, losing my life."
Let me ask you this, because now the fighting's real. Now it's up close and personal. Have you ever personally had to finish someone?
Yeah. And I'll tell you that the first time I know for sure that I killed a guy, there was a lot of like enjoyment, as of like it was like a celebratory type action, because this was in the middle of a firefight, where they were nailing us from their position, and I ended up hitting it with an RPG. And as soon as I hit it, all the gunfire on that part just ceased, and everybody's cheering me on up and down, and it felt good, and but as time went by, like I said, like my friend was killed by the sniper bringing the water in. Later on during this new phase of the war after the invasion in 2022, there was one instance where we rolled up on some guys and we killed them at close range, and it was more personal, and that definitely felt different. It didn't feel nice, like, at all, but at the same time, it's like I had to again put on that big boy pants or that face where I'm just like, I'm the professional here. This is what we're doing. These guys came here to kill us. I just killed one of them. So what? Like, get over it.
It's either them or you.
Exactly.
That's the realities of war, right? And sometimes, we do a lot of prison stuff over here. Sometimes that's the reality in prison. It's either them or you. And sometimes you have to do things that you may not want to do. Over there, you're fighting for a cause. The Russians feel they're fighting for a cause. The Ukrainians feel they're fighting for a cause. But, like you said, it didn't feel good. Did you ever sit back and think, because I know you have a child, you have a couple of children, actually. You ever think about, man, we took these people out, now they may have a son that's growing up without a father? Does that ever enter your mind?
It does. But at the same time, like, the brutality in which what the Russians are doing here right now has kind of completely desensitized me to a degree of feeling some type of feeling bad for.
I mean, it's the same way I think in prison. When you continue to see violence, you become desensitized. Things don't hurt you. Things don't bother you. I had a guy send me some pictures about a month ago. People, if they were to see these pictures, would have been absolutely shocked. Well, I think we're going to do a Patreon and maybe start putting that stuff up. But it doesn't hurt me like it used to hurt me in the beginning. It doesn't feel the same anymore. And it's a sad reality that when you're in war, that when you're in prison, and some people might be like, man, war is so much different than prison. But I think that prison, you're in a different kind of war where the violence is up close and personal. But you become desensitized. And I guess to a certain point, it seems like you become desensitized, right?
Yeah. And, one thing to say about that being up and close personal, it's like, it's one thing to, like I said, fire an RPG at a position that's about 200 meters away. Then it is, to shoot a guy who's 20 meters away. Then it is like to stab somebody face to face. There is a level of that it becomes more personal, more intimate, more connected to what you're doing, but here in Ukraine, it's like I have to remember what the Russians have done here, which have warranted this. They've come into our country and they've started just murdering people, literally for some kind of sorry about that. They've started murdering people literally for some kind of a war of conquest, like a war of bolsterizing the border of Russia to restore greatness. And you have a dictator over there who's sent an army by pure choice to invade their neighbors and try to conquer them. And what we've seen here in Ukraine has been similar to what was seen in the Second World War, where you've literally have entire villages and families just murdered. There's like, if you look at what happened in Bucha in the early days of the war, which was town north of Ukraine, they were literally going around murdering all the men, like tying their hands behind their back, killing them in front of their families, SOing the women and children, and is absolutely horrible. And one thing is with the United States Army, it's like we really do live by the culture where when we're in a combat zone, we uphold the Geneva, laws of war. And some people might scoff at that and be like, oh, well, look at Abu Ghraib or this or that. It's like, if you were in Afghanistan, if one of us decided just to like murder an old man for no reason, or like, sexually assault some woman or something, like they're going to send you to Leavenworth, like for life, they're going to come down on you. But here, it's like the Russian Ministry of Defense, it's like they applaud it. They actually condone it. And instead of giving their soldiers court-martial or imprisonment, they give them medals for acting like this,
So right now, Joe Biden, the president of the United States, and other world leaders, they're all meeting together, right? And your president over there was Zelensky. He's asking for more help, and we need this and we need that. And the Republicans are like, hey, we need to spend this money on our own country. And, this is hurting us. But I think what they don't understand is that, power corrupts absolute power, right? So if you allow them to go there and conquer, who's next? Is Poland next? And I think it would just, escalate. Then you'd have a bigger problem for the United States. And some people don't focus on that and see that. Obviously, these people want, like you said, they want to conquer. And some people are like, well, that was their land first. And Ukraine's like, this is our land. And, a whole bunch of people are dying. They're dying for, I don't know, patriotism, loyalty and wanting to, like you said earlier, this is us and this is ours. But really, you're on the front lines. And a lot of people, we can hear what we want to hear on the news, but you're there every day. Who's winning?
We are. I say that very proudly. And a lot of people say, oh, well, we heard that, Ukraine's not doing so well, or this or that, or the Russians are actually winning. It's like, look, I'll tell you with 100% confidence that Ukraine will stand. Like, Ukraine will not lose this war. Now, if you ask me what does winning look like, is there a possibility that Ukraine might concede some territory of itself to Russia? Right now, of course, the Ukrainian president's stance is absolutely not. We're going to fight for everything. But, that might happen. But if you look at it in terms of like Russia used their entire army on the first day invaded this country, they were denied access to Kiev. They completely failed the Battle of Kiev. They turned around and left. They tried to attack the biggest port city of Odessa. They weren't even able to take the small port city of Mykolaiv, which is on the way. They took Kherson, which we took back, and pushed them further back away. It's like the amount of land that the Russians occupy at this point, it is not any much more than what the Russian separatists already had prior to the invasion. So it's like when it comes to Ukraine's future, it's like you could safe to say that Russia has already lost this war. There's no way that they're going to be able to retake Kiev or reoccupy Kharkiv or Odessa. Like these are all, it's never going to happen. The Russian army is not great.
Let me ask you this, because this is something that people want to know. Are you worried about any type of nuclear threats over there?
Yeah, of course. But I think there's more of a threat to some type of, attack on the Zaporizhzhia power plant, which is Europe's biggest power plant. And some type of attack on that could have some kind of nuclear fallout disaster that would be bigger than Chernobyl. I think that's more of a concerning likelihood when there's threat of some type of nuclear attack or nuclear blackmail. But the use of like a tactical nuclear weapon, I don't think that it would happen. I know that the United States or NATO countries have already told Russia flat out that that's a red line, that if they cross that red line, then we would use conventional weapons to completely take out the Black Sea naval fleet and the rest of Russian military positions that are in Ukraine.
Well, let me ask you this, right? Putin's an old man. Who knows how many years he has left? Do you think it really matters to him personally? You think he won't pull the trigger? I mean, he doesn't have that many years left anyway.
That's the thing. It's like, you know, he's an old man. He doesn't have that many years left, like you're saying, and his health has been called into question. You know, whether he has cancer or some kind of neurodegenerative disease, some type. But the thing you got to remember about Vladimir Putin is he has lots of grandchildren. He has children. He has grandchildren. You know, he has all this money and wealth that he plans on giving to his family. You know, so somebody who would go for nuclear war wouldn't be just suicidal. It would also be including the safety and well-being of his own family. And I think Putin doesn't want to risk that.
Well, you know, sometimes we can say that stuff, but we see all kinds of people snap and just do things and not think about the consequences. The world is changing from when we were younger. You know, you see it drastically. Some guy the other day, you know, kills the state trooper in California. He's absolutely nuts. You really think Putin gives a shit about his grandkids and all of that? And I mean, I just see these guys on the verge of being absolutely dangerous. You would think, well, this is the only thing that's keeping him in check. And maybe he's like, you know what? We're all going to go together.
Well, no, absolutely. But at the end of the day, it's like the only thing you can do to counter, you know, such thought and behavior is letting them understand that, you know, if you use nuclear weapons, that we're going to use them on you, that there's some type of mutually agreed, you know, destruction, as they call it. Because if you start backing down to one guy just because he's crazy and suicidal, then they're just going to use that, you know, to actually implicate what they want on you, because then they feel like, oh, these people are so scared of me. Oh, they think I'm crazy, that I'm willing to go out in a bang, you know, so now I'm going to push the envelope, like certain, you know.
Definitely understandable. Let me ask you this. You're over there, you're an American, you know, military trained. Did they use you to train some of them cats over there or teach them some things?
Yeah, so just about when we recaptured the city of Kherson, I live in southern Ukraine near the port city of Odessa. We have what's known as the Odessa Territorial Defense. It's basically almost like their version of National Guard. And when I first ended up taking over the training operations there, they were non-existent. So I ended up finding a few guys who were like-minded online, who were also, you know, ex-military, who decided to come and implement a training regimen with myself. And we were able to form this, essentially it was just, you know, the U.S. Army Infantry School doctrine of reactive contact, patrolling, principles of patrolling, how to set up a patrol base, leaders reconnaissance, attacking, storming position, trench position, basic CQB, assaulting like a building, compound, how to mask yourself and equipment from enemy drones, and, you know, enemy snipers, things like that. And we had a really successful program. We also did live fire exercise, everything from basic marksmanship, to fundamentals of marksmanship, to live fire, squat.
So basically, you've helped out and you're kind of training them guys. What's the pay like? People probably want to know that.
So at the beginning of the war, it was, if you sign a contract with the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, in the rear, it was about $1,500. Moving on, if you're on the front line, it could be up to $4,000. But
Man, what?
I understand now.
Is that a month? Because the people.
Yeah, a month. Yeah. So what people need to understand is one thing, it was a bit of a hard sale with a lot of the guys coming from the US, because it's like, look, you got family back home in the United States, need more money. I pay for life for my family back in the US. It's just here in Ukraine, like the normal salary in this country is about $500 a month. So it's like, for them to be paying up more is actually, for them, was quite significant. And a lot of the guys who come here, who are serious about this type of mission, they're not in it exactly for the money per se. Of course, you need money to live, expenses, especially if you have a family, this to that. But a lot of the guys, they come here because they really believe in something. They really want to do this. And it's just like, yes, of course, the money that comes in is used for them, like, conveniently to live here and survive in Ukraine. It's enough, it's affordable. But of course, it's nothing, great.
So I know you're over there, you meet a Ukrainian woman, you have a baby. What do your parents think about, you being there?
So, my parents are very proud about my decision, and they know about the, different troubles and challenges, obviously, that I faced earlier in life. And it was like, ever since I came here, it's like I've had a completely 180. I met a very wonderful woman who happens to be from Donetsk region. Like, we're families from Eastern Ukraine, which is the Russian-speaking minority portion. So it's like we understand this a little bit more than most people, what's going on. And, having a child here, it gave me an opportunity to, like, really be a father, really pay more attention to my daughter growing up. And before the full-scale invasion, I had just gotten out of the Ukrainian Marine Corps. And it was like I turned a new page in my life, a new chapter. And then it was just like 2 months later, this invasion happened. And it was like, back to the military again.
I'm happy for you, bro. You've conquered your addiction. You turned your life around. It took you maybe going to another country, finding, someone that you love, someone that you care about, creating a life. I'm happy for you, bro. I'm glad that you're no longer at the house party or no longer, getting shot in a stairway. You obviously came a long way. So definitely commend you on that, bro. Ever coming back to the US or no?
Yeah. So, just want to touch on one thing that you're saying. It's like they say the geographical cure. Like, a lot of times they say it's not really a cure at all. It starts from within yourself. Okay, that's true. But at the same time, if you can remove yourself from such a toxic environment, really can give yourself the opportunity to grow in different ways, right? Will I return to the United States? Absolutely. I love America. I'm an American. I miss my home. I got my family too, mom, dad, sister, everyone back home. I'm a patriot. It's just the timing right now, it's not right. But as soon as I've already made a commitment to when this war is over, and we kind of get my family situation more stable, I do plan on returning back to the United States, and also, becoming more of a life where I can travel between the two countries as I see fit.
Does your wife, your child's mother, does she want to come to the U.S.?
She wants to come to the U.S. Just right now, it's more convenient to have my family stay in a third nation close to Ukraine. It's been easy for us to kind of manage in that regards, but as soon as the war is over, it's one of our things. It's like, my wife does want to experience the United States. America, for everything that I say, it is a very beautiful place. There's a lot of, natural beauty, so many different states. We tend to forget about these things, really, how lucky we have as Americans. Because, nowadays and age, there's so much polarization going on. There's so many, I guess you'd say, like, flare-ups in society, cultural differences, things like that. And it's like we lose track of the fact that we are all Americans, and we should be more like united, in how we deal with each other and show respect and, pursue that life of happiness, and prosperity, and do it the right way.
Well, you're there in the trenches, and you know what? When I moved to the area that I'm in, I get out of prison after all them years. I remember walking around in the neighborhood and looking at the trees and looking at the water and saying, you know what? I appreciate this. There's so much more to life. I went to prison young, never really experienced life. Thought I knew everything about life, but didn't really know shit. And you being there, you're in the trenches, you learn to appreciate it. So look, man, before we get ready to go, there's some people out there struggling. There's some kids on the wrong path. There's some young people caught up in addiction. What do you want to say to them? Because I think that maybe you could give them a message.
Yeah. All right. If you have a dream, go for it. Do something important with your life. Do something that will not just make yourself, your parents, your children proud, but also do something to help other people. Like, do something important. Don't ever think that there's some kind of barrier up in your life that won't allow you to get to a certain place or reach some kind of dream of yours. And also remember that there's so much more out there, than the street life and doing drugs. Because once you start down, the path of drugs, you might really screw your life up in a way where you will close doors and opportunities. And you might not see the opportunity now, but years later, you might totally change and you might want to go pursue something else. And you need to have clean record. Like, you need to stay on the straight and narrow. There's plenty of other ways to make money and be successful that have nothing to do with crime, because like the only thing that's going to do is put you behind bars. Like, and that's the last place you want to be. And if you do that, what are your children going to say? What are people going to be proud of you? You want to do something good with your life, go ahead, go do it. And have courage to do the right thing.
Well, listen, man, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, your experiences. It's a hell of a story. You go from, this kid going into the military to getting out, getting shot at a house party, getting robbed, addiction, to doing what people would be like, what? Going to Ukraine and fighting over there and taking a chance with your life. And I pray that things work out for you. Hopefully that war will end soon. You can come see your family and you guys can reunite and you can live your best life, man. I'm going to tell people, if they like what we're doing, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. With respect, Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Until tomorrow, we're out.